viewers a day, the biggest classroom in the world, and it worked. It worked. Just a bit of advice from an old man who's been there. It's very difficult to force people to teach your way. They must entertain their way. And they must be natural, they must be honest, and questions. For heaven's sake, questions. That's where the phoning of other people. Without a question, you don't have a class. You need that love, that passion.
Just think about what this man was able to accomplish in his lifetime. 120 million people tuning in to a single program around maths and science education. And this was all done outside social media. It was all done outside videos going viral. What more could be done today? He was so ahead of his time, and the country has really lost not only its favorites, maths and science teacher, but an icon indeed, William Smith, passing away yesterday at the age of 85. And you'd remember the Learning Channel. It used to air on SABC all the time. I remember seeing it when I was in primary school. I would see it, didn't understand half of what was going on. Of course, once you get to high school, it's different, because now you actually have to pay attention. Otherwise, you just won't pass. And so many South Africans, I think there's an entire generation of South Africans that knows who William Smith is. And it's also the power of platforms like the SABC, public broadcasters, the public good that they're able to actually infuse into our society, especially where we have a common vision as a country, a common agenda for what it is that we need to achieve. And I wonder if there are new ways of bringing solutions to the learning problems that we face in our country today. We should have more William Smiths, surely, not less. We should have bigger classrooms, not less, especially because audiences, of course, are the biggest they have been in a long time. So where is the content? Where are the other William Smiths that will be able to build on such a great legacy that he's left behind? You're listening to The Talking Point. It's a great pleasure to be with you this morning. I'm Cathy Mohlahlana, and I'll be with you until midday. There is a bout of flu going around, so please take care. Once you start feeling any symptoms of anything, get treatment immediately. Don't wait. I think, some people at the office, it's knocking us out one by one. So I hope Oliver feels better, at least when he gets back to the office next week. All right, coming up on the show today, we'll kick it off with the open line, as we always do. 086 000 2032 is the number to dial this morning. 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, I'll be taking your messages, your text messages and voice notes on 0614 104 107. So coming up on the show today, in fact, for the open line, I really do want to stay with the issue of education. There was a story that struck me in the Sowetan this morning, and I'll be reading just extracts of it for you. But before I get into that, today's a Thursday, so we'll have Municipal Watch coming up at 10 o'clock. We're going to be zooming in on the role of the municipal manager, because this individual plays a critical function, especially as the chief financial officer of municipalities. But often when things go wrong and there's a need for accountability and answers, it's easy for people to obfuscate that responsibility and not want to take accountability for what falls within their area of influence. So what then becomes the role of the municipality, of the municipal manager? What is it that we as residents of municipalities need to know and understand about this role, so that we are better able to hold them accountable for some of the decisions that are made within municipalities? And I'll also, give you some examples of just what has happened over the years, where we do have failures in the positions of municipal managers. And then the final hour of the show, We're going to be looking at the railway sector. The 13th Southern African Railway Association is currently taking place at the Sandton Convention Centre. We'll be looking at the role that rail plays in our society, and of course we'll be joined by a number of guests for that particular conversation. So hoping that you will be able to join us for that too. All right, that's what you can expect coming up over the next 3 hours. So going back then to the issue of schools and education. This morning in the Sowetan, there is a story there running. The headline there is "Community asks for help to end chaos at Eldorado Park schools." And, you know, the story is really about how community members are appealing for support in dealing with the violence at their schools. Yes, we have a growing problem of violence within our schools that takes place on school premises. It was the details of the story that really struck me, because every line I read seemed to reveal more and more incidents of violence that have somewhat become normalized. And it's the way in which the community members were talking about what has been happening. It's the way in which the teachers, some of those that were interviewed, were talking about what is happening. So the latest incident then was a stabbing incident at the Lancia Vale Secondary School in Eldorado Park last week. A student was stabbed, and that particular student remains in hospital. Following that stabbing, 3 classrooms were torched at the school. 2 pupils were arrested for the torching of those classrooms. And then the community goes on to say that it's not a school that influences pupils, but the environment outside. And the violence outside seems to make its way inside the school premises. Sometimes you even see pupils from other schools jumping over the fence to fight with the school's pupils. There were 2 other shooting incidents at 2 other schools in the area. And in both those schools, you had a learner accessing another secondary school, carrying a knife. A fight breaks out within the school premises. There are gunshots that are fired on the school property within the school. Now, if that's not alarming, I don't know what is. And remember, this happens in the context of what we saw just 2 weeks ago with Pastor Mboro and his accomplices walking and storming onto schools, pangas, rifles carried around everywhere. So we have a crisis of violence in our schools. How the community talks about these fights, and this is what they say in the story. They say, we're used to the kids fighting. That's what teenagers do. It's normal. Hey? We are used to the fist fights. That's normal. What has taken us aback is the increasing stabbing incidents. Now, how can we say as a society that fighting amongst teenagers is normal? That when kids can go as far as jumping fences to gain access into other schools so that they can beat each other up, we say that, and we look at that and we say it's normal. But it's abnormal when they start stabbing each other. It's abnormal when they start shooting each other. Surely the abnormality begins in the conflict in the first place. How are teachers supposed to deal with this situation? These are teachers that are overwhelmed by the number of children in their classrooms. These are teachers that are overwhelmed with matters of discipline. Why? Because when they speak to children, the children talk back. They don't want to be disciplined. In fact, they're not afraid to confront their teachers and also threaten them with violence and start hitting them. How are we as a society going to respond to this incredible problem of violence in our schools? Because it endangers everybody. When you send your child to school, you are expecting a level of safety that they will enjoy. But what this tells us is that that is continuously eroded. It is now under threat. If you have teachers' unions that are calling for security guards to be placed on school premises, it is an alarm bell. It says we have a problem. How are we going to deal with this problem? I'd love for you to weigh in on this issue. It is incredibly concerning. 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. 086 000 2032 on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. I'd love to hear from you. I'll be taking your calls shortly.
Borussia Dortmund understands the delight that comes with triumphing the opening clash of the league race. But Eintracht Frankfurt are not about dropping points this early. They want to complete their visit to Signal Iduna Park with 3 incredible points. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch the hot contest between Borussia Dortmund and Eintracht Frankfurt on Saturday, 24 August at 6:30 p.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
It's the most spectacular time to save with the best of everything beauty at Dis-Chem's Beauty Fair. Join us for our iconic 25% off fragrance extravaganza. That's 20% off plus an extra 5% discount for benefit card holders on all fragrance brands such as Zoe, Hugo Boss, Jimmy Choo, Mugler and more. Now on for 2 days, 31 August and 1st September. An extra day of discounts for you in store and online. Only at Dis-Chem, better beauty starts here.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM. Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, I'm taking your calls on the open line. Temba, you're calling us from Heidelberg. Good morning, Temba.
Morning, my lady. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you, Temba.
I'm cool, my sister. Yes, my sister. Okay, I wanna say something, speak my mind on this school violence kind of a thing.
Go ahead, Temba.
Yes, but what has caught my interest is the very park. I don't want to sound racist, and I will try my level best to avoid that at all. But as someone who once dwelled in the Kalati, what do you call it, communities, there's a kind of mysterious whim, that I have experienced there in those communities. In those communities, it is a norm, it seems like a norm for kids, let's say teenagers of 13, 14, to smoke walker pipes right in front of they are house based. Is my point. Or in the public park, not far from where their parents can see. You see. So yeah, it is a norm. So even when you ask their parents that why their kids are being indulged to behave themselves in such a whimsical manner, the kind of any answer that I used to get was, no, man, as long as they don't smoke far away, where you can't see them, maybe where they can end up indulging in drugs and stuff like that. But as long as it is a water pipe, there's nothing wrong with that at all. So I think that norm, has now taken it's a very turning point, that no one can be able to prevent,
Yeah.
And also in Kaladi communities, it is a norm, to drink, to booze, and other unpronounceable kinds of swearing words or vulgar words.
Okay. Temba, thanks for that perspective. I wonder, is Temba correct? For those of you that have heard what Temba has had to say, that in colored communities, as he's suggesting, there are behaviors that are normalized, according to him, that enable the kind of violence that we subsequently see in schools. But if I'm to think about it broadly, Temba, if that were true, then it would mean that the violence is limited to schools in colored areas. But we know that it's not. But I do think that there are issues around discipline, even in the home, that you are raising, that we need to look at. Because if parents can't discipline their own children, how are you expecting that a teacher or somebody else outside of the family structure will be able to do that? Why must that responsibility rest with somebody else? Marcus, you're in Mpumalanga. Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am, and how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, my view of this matter, ma'am, is this. The reflection of this behavior is a true reflection of our community. It means that as our communities, as community members, we are an angry society, we are a fighting society, and this now is being reflected in the behavior of our kids. You are very correct. I'll remember the words that were said long time ago, that it takes a village to raise a child. Now the question is, what are we doing as villagers? How do we behave in front of these kids? Now we want to put a blame on them. I'm not saying I'm promoting what they're doing. It's totally wrong, because I'm also one of the SGP members in one of the schools. I'm also the chairperson of Mpumalanga Anti-Substance Abuse Forum. So this fighting that you see in our kids, this stabbing, it's a true reflection of what communities do we have, regardless of race. As the previous caller said, colored communities. It's not about color. It's happening everywhere. And I'm saying this is my view. It is a true reflection of us as community members. And again, with the previous government, not this one of GNU, because we are still waiting for this GNU to see where it's going, where they've passed laws that parents cannot discipline their kids at home. Even at school, teachers are powerless. They can't do anything because punishment is not allowed based on the act that is there. So these kids are out of control. And until, as parents, as communities, we take over and become in charge of our kids, because you are very correct. At home, in my house, what am I teaching my kids? What is my next door neighbor teaching his or her kids? So it is a community matter, and it's the community that must promote good morals and values. What morals as a community, as human beings, as adults currently, are we teaching our kids?
Marcus, as somebody who's part of the SGB and an association and a body that deals with substance abuse amongst children as well, give me maybe just a very brief example of some of the incidents that you have to come across or deal with on a day-to-day basis.
I'll make an example, ma'am. In my SGB role, I serve in one of the schools as the chairperson of the disciplinary committee. And you find that parents as well, they don't have power to discipline their kids. And students speak as they want to the teachers. And again, even outside the school premises, these kids, they fight. And when you find out what's wrong, the underlying matters, it's because there's an issue at home that is not being addressed. They are being exposed. That's what I'm saying. Our kids are being exposed to violence. The way we as partners, either married or not married, the way we talk to one another in front of these kids, the words that we are using in front of these kids are the very same words that these kids are taking, and the anger that is in them, they are taking it to other children. So those are the things that we face with. And again, hence I'm saying that we as parents, how as a parent to allow your child to come at home drunk at 11 o'clock, attending pubs at 11 o'clock? As a parent, how do you allow your child to go into taverns at 10 o'clock? You sleep without your child in the house. How can you allow a grade 8 learner or a grade 5 learner at about 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night, he or she still is on the streets? How as a parent do you allow that? What is he doing and what is she doing there? And what are you saying, you as a parent, about that?
Sure.
So there's quite a number of issues that I can share, ma'am, if I had time. Because I'm dealing with this directly, and I'm saying it's my view. Our communities have been taken, they don't have powers anymore.
Okay.
Marcus? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Marcus, we're going to have to pause it there. I've got to take the latest news headlines, but you have shared some really insightful thoughts on the show this morning. Thank you for your contribution. It's time for the latest news.
In your news making headlines for this hour, President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed Deputy President Paul Mashatile as acting president as he recovers from an eye infection. Earlier this week, Ramaphosa was unable to attend Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's farewell gala dinner due to the infection. In other news, a new witness is expected to take the stand when the case of 8 officers of the former VIP Presidential Protection Unit resumes in the Randburg Magistrate Court in Johannesburg this morning. The unit does belong to the Deputy President Paul Mashatile. And lastly, the former MK Party Student Command leader and MP Thami Khuzwayo says he will continue to support the party despite his expulsion from it. I'll be back at 10 with more on these and other stories. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM. Call us on 086 000 2032.
Just listening to the issue about schools and kids, the biggest thing with the youth in this country is that they don't have responsible fathers at home. And fathers are not around, they're out drinking, they're out sleeping with different women, and they're not father figures. And that is why you have so many angry kids. A lot of these things that are happening are from young men in the schools. A lot of the acting out behavior as a result of this. They don't have any good guide as to what a good father is. A lot of absentee fathers. And with women and the young girls, it's because older men are sleeping with these girls and they are becoming sugar daddies and using them for sex and impregnating girls at 12, 13, 14 years old. And that is the problem. It starts at home and it's a societal issue. Men in the locations or in middle class, doesn't matter what it is, need to stand up and be proper fathers, and that's actually what it comes down to, and that's my opinion.
Good morning, Cathy. Lucas here in Richmond, Northern Cape. According to those MK members who have been expelled, I don't feel sorry for them, shame. They got what they deserve. How soon they forget the reshufflings that were done by President Zuma in the ANC. You see now, with his parties, he doesn't reshuffle. He is expelling them. He's firing them. Next one will be Shivambu, who will be dismissed. Watch the space. Is the next one.
All right, thank you for those WhatsApp voice notes. Yeah, certainly more developments with the MK party, right? That matter around those expelled members is still expected to go before the courts. And also the comments made by our listener on the breakdown of the family structure, the fact that there are no male role models being at the heart of the problem for this anger. And did you hear what Marcus said? As somebody who deals with schools and issues from pupils on a day-to-day basis, he says a lot of the anger that children are carrying is anger that they're bringing from the home. It all begins with what is happening in our homes. Gray, you're in Cape Town. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning to the listeners. Cathy, I am of the view that our societies, we are making a huge mistake of dissecting certain type of crimes to maybe like right now we look at it from what's happening in the school. But if you look at it like with an overall eye, you would see that there is a serious problem of crime in general within the country. And it goes down to within, let's say, the government and within our societies. And I think crime is controlled mainly by law. By that I mean, if the government has certain statutories that prohibit, let's say, just for example, let's say they put back the death penalty. There are people who they kill people and then they go to prison, and even our prisons, they are not really like normal prisons where people feel the pinch of the rate of whatever they did within that institution. When they go there, life is not as tough. It's more like a rehabilitation center than it is a punishment environment where they will refrain from committing the crime again. So let's say they put the death penalty. There are some other people who will not even dare do it because they are afraid of committing the crime. So there is gangsterism on the rise. There is GBV on the rise. And these things are happening within our societies. And the kids that we are calling kids who are doing the same crimes in schools, who are fighting, in schools, are the same kids. You know where I stay here in Cape Town? They are the same kids that change uniforms and rob people during the night, robbing Uber drivers in areas mainly like Guguletu and Philippi. You don't get robbed by old people. You get robbed by people who look 16, 17. And you can see the depth of how crime is just going worse and worse by the day. Now they are the ones who are being sent to extort, to go and extort from vendors and all people who are doing businesses within our communities. So I'm of the view that the government, I feel like the government, they use a wrong approach in dealing with this crime fighting and everything.
Yeah.
I think if they are to adjust the laws, then probably maybe we might not have serious crime is on the rise as the case is right now.
Look, you know, Gray. For me, I think I'm very apprehensive of just sort of singular solutions to problems like this, especially because what we've come to understand about our society is that we cannot correct behavior through legislation. And look at the issue of gender-based violence. We have enacted some of the most progressive legislation when it comes to dealing with gender-based violence in this country over the years. And yet, that violence remains at an all-time high. So that means that even when you have the legislation available, it doesn't necessarily solve the problem. So we've got to be able to do the hard work as South Africans, as a society, yes, and confront what is at the root of the issues. Yes, by all means, when people have committed crime, they must go to jail and do the time. But if you're talking about young offenders here who end up, in diversion programs, because are you really going to take a 15-year-old and dump them into jail with somebody who is a murderer, perhaps is back in jail for multiple counts of different crimes. No, that's not what you do. But what is it that has gone wrong in the life of this 15-year-old that we as a society need to be looking at, need to be correcting, so that we break these cycles of violence? It's incredibly concerning.
Yeah, that's true. But hey, Cathy, the problem with that approach also is that a 15-year-old today, if we use wrong ways of trying to calibrate them back within our society and mold their behaviors accordingly, a 15-year-old after 2 years will be 17. And when they are 17, the type of crimes that they were committing when they are 15, they would have matured to become something we cannot handle. And often is the case with what's happening right now. So I think there's just a need to have an approach that is not going to. Because I'm of the view that the way we used to handle situations regarding especially to crime and to violence, it hasn't been doing much in trying to control or to limit or to curb it.
Okay.
And we approach the kids as kids who needs maybe to be set down, to be spoken to be taken off the street through certain ways where we would refocus their energy into, but then it takes also a stable home. Normal parents, maybe the parents are not even there, the kids are being raised by Ugogo, and so our society as a whole is not really. I think we're not doing so much.
All right.
Government, like what you said, I took a point that you said legislation on its own cannot do much. I think maybe legislation would lend to softer hearts of people who are willing. Great.
Let's leave it there. Thanks for your contribution on the open line. I'm still taking more of your calls, 086 000 2032, on the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107.
Our Tugs have a great plan to illustrate that they are not just intelligent students in class, but on the field of play as well. Meanwhile, the Zuma-based outfit want nothing except for 3 points to run away from the unpleasant zone. The capital city confronts eThekwini. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game, University of Pretoria Ladies FC versus Lindelani Ladies FC, on Sunday 25 August at 11 a.m. live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Get ready for a magical night filled with hope and positivity at the Night of Hope event, 25th August, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. live. Join Lotus FM Pastor Niven Lauman for a special 2-hour broadcast of the Gospel Hour live at one of Durban's most prestigious venues, the Durban Christian Center Dome. This will be a historic reach, calling the greater Durban community to come together for a night of prayer and embrace, together with SABC to present live from the venue to a greater South African audience. Tickets are free. Secure your spot by booking online through Quicket today. Don't miss out on this unforgettable, historic night for South Africa. See you there.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
All right, we continue taking your calls on the open line. Let me go to Fico. Fico, good morning. Figzo, Lebo says it is. Figzo.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Cathy.
Yes.
Good morning to all. In fact, after Marcus had spoken, I thought that maybe I should drop the phone, but I was like, it will be rude of me, But my main issue is with the person who says this is a colored community. I mean, where do we live? Where do we actually walk around? Because even among our black communities, you'll see these kids doing all these things, smoking, drinking, fighting. I mean, it's not fair to associate it with like your colored community. I don't think that was fair. That was the main thing I wanted to say. I'm not going to take too much of your time, but it's not fair to say it's a colored. Maybe the school that has been banned from the colored area, but that does not mean it's only colored people who have got this problem. It's a general problem, and it is there.
Why do you think that parents are struggling with this issue so much? Because when you have a young person, this young person is under the guidance of certain individuals, whether it's their parents, their grandparents, their aunts and uncles. Ultimately, there are some adults that bear some responsibility over these children. Otherwise, then they would be under the care of social workers. So what do you think is going wrong within the home, that even when parents are coming home, they see their kids drinking on the street corner and they feel powerless? They feel there's nothing they can do.
Yeah, no, you know what, like I was saying, Marcus has actually summed it up nicely. But to be honest, the other thing that I've seen, especially with us young parents, is we just cannot agree on disciplining the child. You know, if you want to say this, and then the mother will say that. If the mother wants to discipline the child, you as father, again, you come in and say something different. I think that is where I see a little bit of a problem. At the end of the day, kids will go with the one who is always on their side, and that is where the discipline is lacking, especially from that side. If you want to be firm on particular things, simple things like, you know, pocket money, you know, you give the child small pocket money, then you must give the child more than that. And then when they have got this lot of money, you know what they do? They buy all these other things. They're exposed to these things. There are these tuck shops where, I mean, some of the things we have seen them, where they buy drugs directly, and you get the guy say, hey, I'm coming to buy something. You're in front of the queue maybe to buy bread. And then you will see this tuck shop owner, he will quickly go somewhere and then take out something and quickly give that little boy, you know. So those are things that they've got access to money now, because we think that if we give them money, it is the right thing. But in the olden days, it was difficult to be given money, you know.
Okay.
Lunch boxes were there, but you know, but mainly, I just wanted to say this is not a colored problem; it's a general problem.
All right, Fixo, thanks for
got
the
it
call.
also in our community. Thank you very
Absolutely,
much.
I agree with that. Thanks, Fixo. Wisani, you also want to talk about this issue that I've raised out of Aldo's.
Good morning, Sister Mijani.
Mifukile.
Yeah, you know what's happening in Eldos. As a neighbor, I'm staying close to Eldos. I've grown up close to Eldos. The painful thing is this case. It's like, do you remember as a Bolt driver, a Uber driver, we declare Eldos as no-go area. Because there's someone who's influencing these boys I was once a victim of being robbed in Eldo as a driver. Somebody requested me. When I get there, I see one person standing there. When I drive and pick up, remember our cars is central lock. When I unlock the cars, these other three guys, they came and opened all the doors. When I focus on this, the one is in front, he grabbed my handbrake. You see, he grabbed my handbrake so that I don't run away. And then they attacked me. They took everything from me. Okay. When I do research, they're in extension for a big boss who's just sitting there, sending these boys, giving them smoke to go and grab people, you know. So they are aware. They know this situation because every time when something like this happens, we report, and what they will respond, they will say, why did you go there? We are waiting. You know, the painful thing. We are waiting. There are innocent people in Eldos, and they are always crying. If we don't pick up, they say, Uber drivers, they don't want to go there.
So Wisani, is this sort of some form of consensus among Uber drivers that when you get a request from Eldorado Park, you just don't go?
Yes.
Is during the day, or only certain times?
Anytime, Eldos is not safe. And the police, I will suggest maybe our government must just send the police from Tembisa just for operation or for 2 weeks and always stop them, because the police there are afraid of these boys, and Because one day, this case, I will tell you this. One day, I went to police station around 4 in the morning. The police arrested one of these boys. So these boys, they went, they were plus 10. They went to police station, throwing stones to police station. You see?
Yeah.
And the police were running away because they can't do anything. Remember that story of Bosman, that the guy who shot that boy. The police in El Dorado Park, they are afraid of these boys because if they do anything wrong, if maybe they shoot or arrest, they are in trouble. Even the parents in El Dorado Park, some parents, they are supporting their kids because we had one day we had an operation. We as Uber drivers, we went to Elzo. We caught those guys and we beat them, not to kill them. We beat them. The parents, some parents, they turn to us. They turn against us, That's why I'm saying some parents, they support this thing.
Sure.
It's from home.
Yeah, we suddenly just listening to the examples that you've shared. There's clearly so much that is happening, and different layers on which things are really going wrong and not functioning as they should. So thanks for the call, Wisani. Incredibly insightful in terms of actually giving us a picture of what else is happening in a community like El Dorado Park. But my word, two wrongs don't make a right, Two wrongs don't make a right. We'll take a quick break. Back with more of your calls.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2 as the top 8 take on a new challenge. This week, they delve into the world of social media and learn what it takes for a recipe video to go viral online. Working together, they must create their own unique version of a famous social media bake. That's the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. only on SABC2.
The clock is ticking fast as we approach the celebration of Sport Queens in Mzansi, Africa, honoring the passion, courage, and excellence of women in sport. Experience the G-Sport Awards 2024 finalist announcement this Thursday, 22 August at 12 midday, live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the open line. I'm still taking your calls on 086 000 2032, which is the number to dial this morning. Sfiso, you're out in Durban. Good morning.
Greetings, Cathy, and thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to share my sentiments regarding the very decorative career of the outgoing Chief Justice. My view on this is that as much as there are a lot of praise regarding his career, however, some of the responsibilities and some of the things that might have happened, he also needs to own those criticisms, such as the July unrest and other things that might have happened unsubstantiated in the judiciary as a whole. Meaning that in one of the interviews that was conducted by Justice Mogoeng, when it was his days to leave, I think it was about filling the appeals court, there were allegations that within the judiciary there is something called the top six. And upon him ascending to the higher office as the Chief Justice, he never investigated as to who the top six in the judiciary, how did the name came about, and what is its duty. Because it was said live during the interviews. I'm sure at SABC you still got those records. The second one, of the July unrest, is that the whole manner of him handling the whole investigation and the commission brought us to the July unrest. Because when the former president, Jacob Zuma, indicated that him as a Chief Justice and heading the commission, he needs to recuse himself because of their history, he blatantly refused to do that. And subsequent to that, when Zuma was found to be in contempt of court, Chief Justice just went straight to the Constitutional Court and referred the matter to the Constitutional Court, whereas this matter could have been heard by the lower court. And I strongly believe that the other lower courts would have came to a different conclusion of that of the Constitutional Court.
Okay.
And for that, I think he is squarely to be blamed for everything that happened afterwards.
Yeah, look, I guess the issue that you're raising, Sfiso, is that much of that remains part of the debate, right? Part of the conversation and perhaps reflections. I guess it's things perhaps for the Chief Justice to think about, but certainly does not change how some of those events unfolded ultimately. Billy Masha, you're out in Sekhukhune. Good morning.
Very good morning, sir.
Yes.
For schools, for school violence, you have yourself to blame as SADC. Because,
tell me more.
Excuse me?
Tell me more.
Yes. There was a drama called Izo in the 90s, I guess, or in the early 2000s, of ladies being replaced by the one called Skim Sam. Those kind of dramas, when you watch them, you can realize that there's nothing better which our kids are being taught there. Our kids are being taught to be arrogant and violent and rude to the elderly. Now, it's a problem because the SABC is not playing a role in assisting the situation in society. It's actually encouraging it in a way. Because if you leave kids watching those things alone, because in any way, these programs are shown during the prime time when the family is together. But then the problem is you can't even call out your own kids because that's what they fantasize. They watch these things happening in front of you. Just 3 weeks back.
So Billy, when you're watching TV with your children and something comes on that maybe you find disturbing, you don't have conversations with them about it.
That how do I prove that? Because this thing just happened. It's a comedy.
Yes, but surely that's a good opportunity to have and start a conversation, no? when you see if it's a young child being rude to their teacher and it's there as part of the scene, you don't ask them, well, what do you think of this actually? If this happened to you in class, how would you respond?
Correct. But these kids which are acting, now they are models. They are being made role models of our kids. And they become unrespectful to their teachers and their parents.
Yeah. Look, Billy, I don't think that parents are as powerless as sometimes we may want to believe.
You need to define that power yourself. You need to define it.
Absolutely.
What power is it? There's a power of the media, social media, everything. Thank you.
Okay, Billy Masha out in Sekhukhune. And the reality is, right, whether you allow your children to watch TV or not, they're still going to get exposed. Pick up their phones. Parents buy their kids smartphones these days. Do you know what it is that your kids are getting up to on those phones. Wonga, you're out in Matatiele. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to SFM listeners. Cathy,
yes.
On the 11th of May 2023, an SIU letter was delivered to the municipal manager of Alfred Nzo regarding the present executive mayor whom his companies are trading within the district municipality and are trading to each other. You'll find out this company wins the tender, it does subcontract. This one wins the tender, it does subcontract. So I don't know how long does the SIU takes to investigate. There are cases, nothing is happening. There's no water around Alfred Nzo as a whole because the contractors that works there, they don't finish the job, but the man is still there as a mayor and he's probably going to run to be the chairperson of the ANC again this December to become the mayor again. The municipality is bleeding. How can we be assisted as people of Alfred Nzo and then this madness can be stopped?
All right.
It's a problem. It's bad.
Wonga, I think the example that you're giving us actually falls right into line with our conversation for Municipal Watch today, which is going to be focusing on the role of the municipal manager as the accounting officer and also questions of accountability. So you may be a couple of minutes too early, but let's get into that conversation and I'll also try and raise your issue with our guest. For now, it's 10 o'clock. Time for the latest news update.
Top stories for this hour. Mashatile appointed as acting president and weather warning issued for parts of KZN. Good morning, I'm Eva Chipa. President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed Deputy President Paul Mashatile as acting president as he recovers from an eye infection. Mashatile will oversee the signing of the second presidential health compact at the Union Buildings in Pretoria this afternoon. Siwahlamot reports.
Acting President Paul Mashatile will officiate the signing of the second Presidential Health Compact. The Health Compact, which was established in 2019, is a framework between critical sectors that include government, business, academia, and civil society. The Presidential Health Compact has a monitoring and evaluation component where roles and responsibilities are assigned to a range of stakeholders to support health systems in preparation of the national health insurance. It consists of 10 pillars that include the development of human resources, improving access to medicine, vaccines, and health products, and the upgrading of infrastructure, amongst others. I am Sibahle Mota in Johannesburg.
A new witness is expected to take the stand when the case of 8 officers of the former VIP Presidential Protection Unit resumes in the Randburg Magistrate Court in Johannesburg this morning. The unit belongs to the Deputy President Paul Mashatile. The third witness is the owner of the car, which the accused allegedly blocked on the N1 highway in July last year. The witness testified yesterday that the vehicle was in poor condition. The 8 accused are facing various charges, including reckless and negligent driving, pointing a firearm, malicious damage to property, and assault. In other news, the former MK Party Student Command leader and MP Tami Kuzwayo says he will continue to support the party despite his expulsion from it. He's among the 10 MK Party members that have been booted out and removed from their positions as MPs. The Western Cape High Court yesterday postponed the case to the 3rd of next month, which they are seeking a reinstatement. The expelled MPs are set to host a media briefing later today. Kuzayo says rogue elements in the party are behind the expulsion.
I will continue to support Mkondo because I know that it's not the entire organization that orchestrated this entire thing. It's some individuals within the organization whose agenda is unknown to me, but it's not something that I think the president would actually support. So there are people who are enjoying close proximity to the president, and they are doing some other things without his knowledge. I'm using his name. I've always said that they use his name to say he has agreed to this, has agreed to that, because they know rather that we'll never be able to get to him.
The South African Weather Service has issued a warning for a cold front with strong winds in the southern parts of KZN. It says winds at the speed of between 70 and 80 kilometers per hour are expected between Port Edward and Richards Bay. This could lead to damage to homes and temporary structures and disruption to beachfront activities. The Provincial Cooperative Governance Department has advised small boat owners to avoid going out to sea and the public to stay away from the beaches. And lastly, looking further afield, a collection of snails kept in the basement of an office building in Britain is at a centre of a tax evasion row. The authorities in Liverpool believe the creatures are being kept so that the property can qualify for agricultural use, making it exempt from business tax. The director of Snail Primary Products also runs the company, which specialises in minimising such tax liabilities. Nick Small is from the Liverpool City Council.
It's unfair to those businesses who pay what they ought to pay, who pay their contribution. It's unfair trade, and it gives people an advantage that they shouldn't have. But it's also taking money out of frontline public services.
Recapping the top story this hour. President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed Deputy President Paul Mashatile as acting president as he recovers from an eye infection. That's it from me. For SFM News, good morning. I'm Eva Chipa.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point 5 after 10 o'clock, or should I rather 6 minutes after 10 o'clock. Apologies for that. Thanks for tuning into the second hour of the show. Coming up in this hour, we are focusing on Municipal Watch. It is a Thursday. Today, the spotlight is on the role of municipal managers. And I think the success and failures of many municipalities rests in these individuals. Yes, you've got those that have had great track records, that have done incredibly well for their municipalities, but often we hear about the corrupt, the controversial, that enable the malfeasance in their municipalities, and in fact are sometimes even the drivers of that very malfeasance. So we'll try to understand what the role of the municipal manager is, why it's important, how we can hold them accountable. All of that coming up in the rest of the hour. Before we get to it, your voice notes.
Good morning, Cathy. My name is Titus. This issue of unruly school children, the solution must start at home. If parents can discipline their children will behave in school. They must teach them to respect their teachers and respect other learners. And the other thing is, fathers must be present in their children's lives, and they must set good examples. They must be role models, good role models to their children. That's how some of us were raised. So that's my view. Thank you very much.
Morning, Cathy. Makosonke from Jablan in Soweto. As a young person, I was inspired by Lucas Radebe to be a good custodian of my mind, to learn how to apply my willpower, to regulate my emotions, and to understand that everyone has a potential of becoming a leader. It's not particular people that can be leaders. And Cathy, since from 2016, Lucas has been working hard to bring sports in schools, and he doesn't get the necessary support. And this is what these young people need at the end of the day. And not only them, however, to also empower educators and parents to actually inspire these young people. Thank you.
Good morning, Cathy. It's Komuzumpangazi from Moy River. I just want to know about these people that have been removed by Jacob Zuma from the MK party. What is it that they did? Because I'm not clear as to what they've done that is wrong. If you know, please tell me because I'm not clear about the mistake or something wrong that they've done. Thank you, Skumbuzo from Moy River.
Good morning, Cathy and the listeners. Cathy, what's happening at the schools cannot be looked at in isolation. The school are not on some other planet. They're part of the communities that the children are coming from. So in the communities they're coming from, they're experiencing the same levels of violence, if not bigger levels of violence. The thing that this government has done to this country, I think it's going to take years if we're ever going to succeed in undoing what has been done to this country in terms of the lawlessness that we're experiencing. Thank you very much for a fantastic program, Cathy. It's nice to hear your voice on the radio every single day. Saki in Kraaifontein.
Good morning, Cathy. Federal Tracker here. Cathy, there's nothing normal in our country. The parliament itself is not normal. People throwing glass jars at each other, fist throwing, shouting at each other, calling each other names, pastors dooming each other, throwing knives and bunkers and rifles. The children are watching. So there's nothing normal there. Even that guy from Eswatini, he was telling the truth when he said the country is rotten from the top.
Good morning, Sis Cathy. This is Mbongo Sundisa Palindulo. Sis Cathy, I think there's no difference between Herman Mashaba and Jacob Zuma. He's an opportunist. And then secondly, he's just causing chaos and he's destabilizing the municipalities. You see, in Tshwane and in Joburg, I was always hoping that no man, this guy is good, he's caring about the people. Then I didn't realize, oh, he was once a mayor also. He then failed Johannesburg too, even though he was trying. But then now, I think he's starting to play like dirty tricks or dirty games. He's no longer good anymore. He keeps causing chaos. Always complain a mayor must only work like 8 months. Then no, there's a fault with this mayor. We do not need that one. What is it? Does he want to be a mayor again?
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
All right, thanks for those WhatsApp voice notes that you sent through from the first hour of the show. So today for Municipal Watch, we're focusing on the role of the municipal manager. And in many instances, of course, this is where things often go wrong. The municipal manager is supposed to be the chief accounting officer of municipalities. And this is where we see communities often protesting and raising concerns around some of the behaviors of the municipal managers. In fact, also going as far as to demand for resignations in some instances because they believe that these individuals are engineering the procurement within municipalities, and it thus ends up going to friends, going to relatives, going to acquaintances, and service delivery is not always at the level that it should be. So this is a role that comes under a lot of attention and scrutiny, especially from residents. Mielani Holeni is the Chief Group Advisor at Ndiso Consulting. He's also a local government revenue and governance expert. Joins us on the line this morning. Mielani, good morning to you. Thanks for your time as always.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to the listeners.
Look, I suppose more broadly I've spoken about why the role of the municipal manager is so important, but when it comes to understanding the administrative functions that fall within the ambit of this individual, perhaps give us a breakdown of why their position is so important and also why it's so powerful.
So, as you've correctly introduced, Cathy, the municipal manager is essentially the accounting officer, and not to be confused with the fact that, there's accounting and there's finance, within the municipality. But the role of a municipal manager is to be accountable for everything that happens within the administration of a municipality. Of course, those powers are delegated to them through council, so that they can be able to discharge all of those responsibilities that they are given. Firstly, as the accounting officer, it means that they are similar to a chief executive officer in a private company or a managing director in a private company, which means essentially everything that rises and falls within a municipality, they have to give an account. And who do they account to? They have to account to council. They have to obviously account, to the leadership, which is through council or through the speaker or even the political heads that have been appointed, as well as the executive mayor. So they sit with the administrative powers to be able to sign off, to be able to run processes, because the political side are not involved in the administration side. So they have to deal with every aspect of the financial side in terms of delegations as well, technical side in terms of delegating responsibilities, and they have to manage the performance of that municipality and have to manage the service delivery imperatives within the municipality, and anything that perhaps could be legal and is legal, their responsibility is to oversee all of those functions within the municipality. So it becomes a crucial role, because if anyone or anything comes to a municipality and they want the responsible person, the municipal manager is ultimately the responsible, accountable officer that must be able to stand for all the matters that come through within a municipality. That's in an overview sense.
When we look at the relationship of the municipal manager and mayor, are there areas in which their roles and their responsibilities overlap? And the reason I ask that question is that often one gets the sense that there's a very blurred line between what the mayor in municipalities is accountable for and what the municipal manager is accountable for. And I don't know whether that's a result of the politicization of local government, and it's become that way, even though it shouldn't be that way.
I think let's deal with the perception first, that there could be the blurring of lines between the executive mayor in an executive mayorship system, as well as a municipal manager or a city manager for that matter, if it's in a city. The reality is that the executive mayor sits there as the executive authority, or at least the one that is the political head for the municipality, and would be leading an executive team of municipal mayoral committee members, and sits there as a vanguard of all of the legislation that would be taking place within, or at least is discharged within a municipality, but from an oversight point of view. And I think it's important that, we emphasize the fact of oversight, and oversight for that matter with the responsibility of ensuring that the administration does what the legislation requires of them, discharges what the policies of the municipality have been put forward to achieve, ensures that the strategy, the IDP, is also implemented, the SDPIP, which is the service delivery implementation budget plan, is also implemented. So the executive mayor, as well as the MMC, so the members of the mayoral committee, are the ones that are playing a role of ensuring. However, the municipal manager plays the role of accounting for all of those. So the executive mayor, in essence, receives the delegations from council, and those delegations would then, according to what is specifically for administration, are fully delegated to the municipal manager. So giving you an example, which is a contentious one, is that the executive mayor does not sign off on anything that has to do with supply chain management, for instance. They would not have to sign off on internal matters, in terms of, annual financial statements and so on. So the executive mayor and the municipal manager essentially have different roles. So the reality after the perception is that the reality is that they perform two different functions. The executive mayor, when it comes to council, obviously stands there as the party that says, I have held the municipal manager accountable. I have ensured that they discharge their responsibilities, and they also have to also give an oversight view that supports or disputes the fact that the administration is working in a way that is following the precepts, is following all of the policies within the municipality. So they perform different roles. The reality of some of the places is that because of the word executive mayor, some of the executive mayors, perhaps there may be a temptation to want to use that executive title to be able to give instructions in terms of the administration. And that would be contravening legislation.
We're going to continue this conversation with Cathy Mohlahlana in a moment.
The Serengeti, located on the northern part of Tanzania, bordering Kenya on the north and Ngorongoro in the south. Home to the African Big Five and millions of zebras, birds and other predators. Serengeti 2 returns to the unspoiled corner of the Serengeti for more animal drama. There's humor, heartbreak and nail-biting tension as new characters move in and familiar faces continue their stories. Channel your inner adventurer with Serengeti 2, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
We can do this. It's been a long time coming. This deserves to grow. It's a great business. If they don't like it, someone else will. And fund me so I can expand. Maybe I can offer them shares. I need to retain equity for staff. It's going to be good for recruitment. Yeah.
Possible begins with that one great idea. When Telkom enables entrepreneurs to make their ingenuity a reality, we grow local economies. Telkom. Possible begins here.
The clock is ticking fast as we approach the celebration of Sport Queens in Mzansi, Africa, honoring the passion, courage, and excellence of women in sport. Experience the G-Sport Awards 2024 finalist announcement this Thursday, 22 August at 12 midday, live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the Talking Point. You're listening to Municipal Watch, and today we're focusing on the role of the municipal manager. Mohlahlana, before we went to break, I asked you about the role of the mayor and the municipal manager, and why we often seem to have this picture of a conflation of roles. And as you've clarified that legally there is no confusion about the role of a municipal manager, the powers that this individual has versus the role of the mayor. Why do you think that over the years there is this sense that there's no clear accountability? Often when you go to municipalities, you have either the mayor blaming the municipal manager blaming the mayor, especially instances where there have been political fallouts and political changes. And how can we, as residents of municipalities, better fine-tune our senses so that we know when individuals are actually trying to escape taking accountability for whatever question of the day they might be asked?
So, in reality, it is quite complex in a sense that looking at what the executive mayor has to ensure as the vanguard, and I'll continue to use this term, as the vanguard of the legislation, and to ensure that the administration functions as it should. On the other side, the municipal manager having to account. So in other words, the municipal manager must be the one who ensures that the IDP is drafted. The executive mayor, as well as the committee, the mayoral committee, all the way up to council, are the ones that will ensure that it is approved. So in this case, if you look at, the fact that the conflicts that may come through between the executive mayor, or the perception that there is a conflict in some cases, is the fact that when service delivery is supposed to take place, it doesn't take place within the executive mayor's office or the mayoral committee. It takes place within the administrative side. So really, everything that has to do with service delivery lies on the shoulders of the municipal manager. And the other issue that perhaps is conflating the matter is the fact that if the executive mayor, as well as the mayoral committee, does not hold the municipal manager to account via perhaps some kind of softening of attitude, or perhaps relations that are perhaps sometimes a bit too close for comfort, and are not looking at the broader picture of the municipality, you start to have those gaps where perhaps the municipal manager may feel that they can get away with some of the things, or some of the officials may get away with some of the things because they have had a conversation with the higher authorities, so to say. So in those cases, I think, which perhaps you and I may not always know what goes on behind the closed doors, but when service delivery breaks down, the first person to look at should be and must be the municipal manager. The accountability for a pipe having burst, because the municipal manager must be able to then hold the technical manager accountable, the technical manager, the engineers, and so on and so forth. So the system of accountability is one that at times is not managed tightly. It is loosely arranged in a sense that it becomes a conversation in the corridor, or it becomes a telephone. But I think what we should be having more and more is to systematize, as well as make sure that whatever those imperatives, whatever those tasks that must be performed, and of course things do go wrong, and when they go wrong, that is when as well the accountability aspect comes in, where one does not deflect the responsibility to take that action. So in this case, the management and accountability system, I think, is one that ought to be tightened, so that it also becomes part of the performance management regime within a municipality, such that there are no gray areas. If you are supposed to be delivering 5 million kiloliters or megaliters of water per month, that should be what is put down as part of the performance regime. And if that doesn't happen, okay, there could have been a burst pipe. What was done with regards to the burst pipe? Are the maintenance plans in place? So I think, without going into the nitty-gritties, the issue of accountability is a one that must always be clear. It must be codified, and that is the default position that an executive mayor or an MMC should be able to invoke all the time when having conversations in the meetings, where they're in the committees, perhaps, where they are meeting with the respective officials that they are looking after in terms of their MMC position, as well as where there's mayoral committee, because that is another point of accounting, where the mayoral committee sits and considers different resolutions from the administration and makes determinations from there on. So the issue of, if I just summarize the matter, is the accountability system must be clear, it must be measurable, it must also be codified, and even automated to the extent to which there are no blurring of lines between what they must discharge as their responsibilities.
This individual is supposed to be able to act independently. Can carrying out their financial and fiduciary duties within a municipality. Why is it that so often when it comes to changes at local government, especially where you have a change in mayor, a change in political party administration, the position that is often targeted is that of municipal manager? Because very soon, then a new mayor comes in. Before you know it, the old municipal manager is being kicked out. Surely that should be a position that is exempt from the political machinations.
And in legislation, it is exempt and should be protected in that particular, because those functions of a municipal manager, and I'll give an example in terms of what the signature of a municipal manager is worth within that municipality.
Okay,
essentially.
Mielani, let me pause you there before you get fully into it. I'll give you a chance to continue on the other side of the latest news headlines. You're listening to Municipal Watch. Today we're focusing on the role of the municipal manager, understanding why this role is so important. I'm already seeing some of the feedback that you've already started contributing to the show on this issue of municipal managers. Please engage, get involved, ask questions where you need clarity, because ultimately when we talk about accountability at local government, we need to know whose door exactly should we be knocking on, and for what? What is the legislative duty that is imposed or that is expected of these individuals? So I'll take your calls 086 000 2032. For now, it's time for the latest headlines.
Thank you very much, Cathy, and a very good morning. With the news headlines, Kimudupima Khalemele. The case of 8 former VIP Presidential Protection Unit officers belonging to Deputy President Paul Mashatile has been postponed to the 3rd of February next year in the Randburg Magistrates Court. President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed the Deputy President Paul Mashatile as the acting president as he recovers from an eye infection. And billionaire media executive Oprah Winfrey has urged Americans to choose common sense over nonsense when they cast their ballots in the November elections. Details of these and other stories at 11.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand currently trading at 17 rand 92 to the dollar, 23 rand 46 to the pound, and 19 rand 96 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mainly higher at the closing bell. The JC green across the board in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe have extended gains. Gold is trading at $2,507. Platinum $959 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $76.02 a barrel.
Feel Good Fridays just got even better with a brand new Espresso newsletter, The Feel Good Fix. Delivered to your inbox every Friday, it is your weekly dose of joy, entertainment, and local flair. Subscribe now at expressoshow.com and never miss a moment.
From heartwarming stories to tasty recipes, it's all there waiting for you. And remember to tune in to the Espresso Morning Show weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on S3, and let's start your day right and channel your inner feel good.
Borussia Dortmund understands the delight that comes with triumphing the opening clash of the league race. But Eintracht Frankfurt are not about dropping points this early. They want to complete their visit to Signal Iduna Park with 3 incredible points. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch the hot contest between Borussia Dortmund and Eintracht Frankfurt on Saturday, 24 August at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Municipal Watch, bringing your local issues on the national agenda. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Mielani Holeni is Chief Group Advisor at Ndiso Consulting. He's a local government and revenue expert. Today we're focusing on the role of municipal managers. So, Mielani, before we went to news, I was asking, why this position of municipal manager is often the one under target, especially where there's a change in administration, a change in political parties that are governing in a particular municipality. Hello, Mielani.
Hi, Cathy. The line was just a little bit faint.
No, that's fine.
So continuing on where we ended, to give a concrete sort of example is that the signature of a municipal manager is essentially worth the entire budget of that particular municipality, if I put it in those terms. So in other words, when the deliberations for the budgets, to put the budgets in place, to draft the budgets, the chief financial officer, to follow the public participation processes, all the way to the point where it is presented, at council and adopted. It means that responsibility to spend all of that money lies with the municipal manager solely within that particular municipality. So you will appreciate, in terms of, if you measure the role of a municipal manager financially, that it's worth the entire budget of that municipality. Of course, there will be operational expenses like salaries that must just, happen. But there are other, the purchasing power of a municipality lies, with the signature of the municipal manager, by and large, depending on how the delegation system has been crafted. So this particular position is one that whoever comes in, you need to have a municipal manager who has the best interest of the municipality at heart. And oftentimes, those municipal managers that have the best interest of the municipality at heart may not always be favored, because perhaps they are seen to be very strict, they are seen to be following the law to the letter, they are seen to be driving imperatives, the way that the SDPIP must be discharged, and so on and so forth. So there perhaps is no room to influence them any other way. Okay, so that is one scenario. The other scenario is that the new executive mayor who comes in obviously may have seen cases where the accountability may not have been followed to the letter, and wants to correct that particular whether it's a mishap or misdemeanors, and in that category, is then looking at how they then challenge the municipal manager, either to rectify whatever the issues are that may have been picked up, or if failing which, you find that there's issues that starts to get the municipal manager uncomfortable. So in both cases, where the executive mayor comes in and the municipal manager is found perhaps wanting, or the other way around, where the municipal manager is doing their best to discharge their responsibilities, and the new team that comes in perhaps has whatever levels of discomfort that they would have. So it is essentially the role of a municipal manager is affected by conflict of one form or the other, whether it's a trust deficiency, whether it's dealing with misdemeanors that they may have committed or rumored to have committed, and so on. So it becomes essentially that position that says, if perhaps there's someone who can discharge the mandate in this particular way, this one does not fit the purpose, perhaps for whatever reason. So it always falls prey to those issues which are conflict, which are human in nature, as well as political in approach, and often would then be ones that would precipitate a municipal manager being dislodged, or in this case a municipal manager fighting for their existence because they are doing the right things, and they are perhaps not malleable or pliable to whatever circumstances that may be brought upon them. And I think those are the dynamics that perhaps some of the municipal managers can at least relate, or some of the executive mayors can also relate, in terms of why would they come into office, and the first thing is that a municipal manager has to now be standing on their toes now, and so on.
Mielani, the last question I'm going to ask, because I do have quite a lot of questions that are coming through from our listeners who also want to contribute to this conversation, is when it comes then to procurement. When you look at the service delivery protests that happen in different parts of the country, all too often the municipal manager is accused of giving contracts, of giving tenders to their families, to their relatives, to their associates. We know of municipal managers who, drive the fanciest cars, live in the most expensive areas that have multiple business interests, even though those businesses may not be in their names. How does that situation arise? So how is it possible that things like that are able to happen systemically?
The role then of an executive mayor, as well as the members of the mayoral committee, and let me also include the Section 80 committees, which are the oversight, committees, ought to be putting and implementing the policies of vetting. And I use the word vetting because that is essentially what it is, to discover what the officials, especially the ones that at the level of the municipal manager, if we focus on that one, what their lifestyle looks like, what their association, who they associate with, who their relatives are, who they are spending more time with. So there needs to be a system which is always put in place as part of their employment, to be given a 5-year contract. That must always be done. And even if they are retained or it's renewed, or they have to reapply again, the lifestyle audits as well as the vetting should always be undertaken. And I think that is an area which is neglected, because if that is not carried out,
Melanie? All right, it looks like we've...
has to go through...
Melanie, we seem to be having a bit of an issue with the connection, but it sounds like you're back up. Please repeat that answer again.
So I was on the point where I was saying the vetting of municipal managers, and I will exclusively make it about municipal managers, since we are discussing on their roles and responsibilities. They must be vetted as part of them being given contracts or employed within the municipalities, where the executive, in terms of the executive mayor, the members of the mayoral committee, the municipal public accounts committee, the Section 80 oversight committees, they ought to be making sure that all of this is done and put on file, so that you understand the balance sheet of that municipal manager, their associations, their family, the friendships, the areas where they have influence, and so on, so that we always can then measure how they are being responsible with the use of the public funds that they are entrusted with. So in most cases, you will find that the vetting is not done properly, or the lifestyle audits are not conducted, or they are not revisited to check, how the changes are taking place, much like on an annual basis, where a bank requests, your annual financials, where they have to check if you have facilities with them, how those facilities you will be able to support the expenditure or the income, and so on. So this is what should be done with regards to municipal managers. So wherever there are that oversight or lack of discharging the oversight role, you will find that those conditions are favorable for some of the municipal managers, perhaps taking and extending they are overextending, for that matter, their reach in terms of managing public funds, and maybe perhaps even giving favors to the same political leaders that are supposed to be playing an oversight role upon them, thereby perhaps keeping a blind eye and so on. So the issue here lies with the vetting. It lies with the compilation of the lifestyle audits and those being kept, up to date, so that it becomes part and parcel of how the municipal manager is kept accountable.
I think the one thing that's clear, Milan, is that corruption that takes place at local government then takes place with the knowledge of a whole range of actors within the system, because how you've described it and the accountability mechanisms that are supposed to be put in place, it can't be that one individual is corrupt on their own and everybody else doesn't know. There certainly then has to be a chain. There has to be consensus and agreement amongst certain individuals of what will happen, because that is how then they protect each other, especially where we are talking about wrongdoing. I want to play these two voice notes for you on the issue of municipal managers, and then I'm also going to take the contributions from our listeners who are calling on the line.
Hi, Cathy. As your guest correctly said, that the signature of the municipal manager is worth the entire budget of the municipality. Now, the politicians know that. That is why they will use the municipal manager to be on their side, so that the municipal manager can assist them to loot the municipality budget. It's anonymous in KZN.
Morning, Cathy. Let's not forget that the 2021 Corruption Watch report actually stated that the most corrupt government officials in this country are municipal managers, followed by HODs of departments. So the most corrupt public sector officials are municipal managers. They're easily corruptible, and they are corrupt individuals. We must never forget that in this equation.
Sure. Thanks for those WhatsApp voice notes. Koti in Polokwane, good morning.
Hi, Cathy, how are you?
Well, thank you.
I'm okay, ma'am. Yes, Melanie, I first have two questions for you. Maybe this can guide us in terms of the legislations to follow. What is the municipality? Who is the municipality? Because I can say all legislations, even the government legislations, there is no way where our legislations are encompassing the values, morals, and the customs in them. Hence, you'll find that even the mayors, they're just misbehaving, intimidating the municipal managers. And those who are the owners or those who are the municipality, they don't have access to echo their dissatisfaction with the mayors and all that. And now that it has been taken that the political party must deploy the mayors in the company that does not belong to them. Because the municipality, as I know, is a public entity. So as a result, things or legislations have been turned around, where you'll even find that the municipal mayor is dancing with the young girls, naked young girls, while he's representing the community. And now one is holding him accountable, taking young children to shebeens and they'll dance naked for him or for her, which is wrong. So we start with morals first. That is what will guide us to have the good municipality under a certain governance.
Okay, Koti, thanks for that contribution. I'll give Melanie an opportunity to respond shortly. Mike, you're out in Middelburg. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy and your guest. Thanks for taking my call. Cathy, good working relationship between the executive mayor and the accounting officer is sacrosanct for good and clean governance. And their relationship must be guided by legislation and nothing else. They must protect each other, from political interference. If they work together in that manner, it will be very difficult for political interference, to take place. And the municipal manager, as the head of administration, reports to the mayor. He cannot take instruction outside the executive mayor. what collapses institutions, especially municipalities, is because your RSCs and your PECs have audacity to instruct the mayor. I mean, not the mayor, the municipal manager. If your municipal manager is strong and he knows that he accounts to you, is informed by legislation, he will tell you, he will defy those unlawful instructions. I used to tell my municipal manager that when they issue instructions to you, just repeat them to me, and then I will tell them where to get off. I will simply defy unlawful instructions, and I can tell you that is why good and clean governance, was our culture.
You know, Mike, I'm listening to you talk about how the mayor and the municipal manager should protect each other, and they should both be able to guard against political interference. And yet, what we often see with corrupt municipalities is that the interference is coming from the mayor. So how would it work? I mean, when we look at the realities that municipalities in this country are faced with, because even where you do have municipal managers that want to do the right thing, often they're up against the odds and they end up doing what they know is wrong because they're trying to protect their jobs, trying to protect their families. So practically, how do we make this a reality?
You see, the problem comes, Cathy, when the mayor opens himself up for unlawful instruction from REC and PEC. The mayor must be guided by legislation. The mayor must not be afraid to say, comrades, yes, I hear you, but this is what the legislation says, and I am not going to deviate from legislation. If you put your foot down, I'm telling you, Cathy, the municipal manager will do his work very well. He will know that you protect him. But if as the mayor, you open yourself, and of course it's not easy, Cathy, because when you defy instructions, unlawful instructions from the REC and PEC, you know that your day is coming. You are going to be axed, but you must stand your ground because your integrity and reputation matters most than anything.
Thanks for that insight, Mike. Mielani, let me give you a chance to respond to the questions that our listeners have posed.
Yeah, the question of who is the municipality. I think in its broadest sense, whoever has a role to play within the municipality and a citizen within that jurisdiction or geography of the municipality essentially constitute the whole municipality. Let me break it down in this way. There are elected members within the municipality, of which would have been elected, through the whatever the elections that would have taken place. There are proportional representative members. There are ward, councillors that would come in, and those would eventually form part of the executive committee of the municipality, and from there the speakers and so on and so forth. But the reality is that the officials form a critical part of the municipality. Even more critical are the citizens that reside within that particular municipality, or in some way or form pay their rates within that municipality, or are residing within the geography. So they form a critical part of that municipality. Of course, to organize the municipality is that there is a municipal council, which is put up as the highest authority that should be determining all of, or at least noting or taking resolutions, ensuring that there's accountability, even on the executive mayor themselves. And the issue, I think, of values become a critical one, because some of the ways that values were being infused into public service, if we look at the Batupilu principles, for instance, they were trying to at least look at how a government institution would be handling its customers. And you can take it as broad as you can, because a customer in this case can be a young man, can be a young woman, can be an old lady, can be an old man, can be anyone who at least, has dealings within that particular municipality. And then comes the issue of ethical leadership. And I think that is something which, how do you, the ethics, are things that, leaders must subscribe to and have their own moral compass. And that is, I think, an area which, at this stage, it's not easy to legislate, for morality. However, it's something that, all of us understand as a society that, the values of the institutions must drive how we carry ourselves and discharge our responsibilities. I think the points, by Dr. Mike, echoes, how the relationship between the executive mayor and the municipal manager should be, because all of them have a key role to play. One, the executive mayor as the vanguard, who's standing there at the gate and making sure that they gatekeep anything and anyone who wants to come and give other instructions other than what is legislated, and the municipal manager to implement all of the plans, the IDPs, the SDPIPs, the budget, and all of those legislations that bind them, as well as the policies, the bylaws, and so on. So in this case, it means that, there should be a mutually beneficial partnership, or at least a one that benefits the municipality and its citizens broadly.
All right. Lisiba, you're out in Khobukwani. Good morning.
Good morning, Sis Cathy, and good morning to your guest, Mohlahlana. And that's what it is. Let me echo the sentiments of Comrade Mike from Midday. I can tell you more than 80% of our municipal managers, they are professionals, they are ethics, but there's only one challenge. Some of the municipal managers, they know even before they get appointed that they will be appointed at a particular municipality as the manager. This is an instruction from a political structure, either at the provincial or at the regional level. When you go there, you already know that your appointment is not based on your performance during the interview. It's extended to be a political deployment. Once you get there, you will always get instruction from the executive mayor or the mayor, knowing very well there is legislation that are controlling you and to have to account to institutions. And if you don't do that, like the Comrade Mike have said, you will suffer the consequence that Comrade Mike suffered, because he stood the ground, he refused to take illegal instruction, eventually get out of the office. So the only way out is the move that makes sure that these people are accountable personally, financially, municipal managers, for any wrongdoing, for any decision that has been taken, either awarding of tender, you interfere with the supply chain, or the appointment of the executive. Then you account financially yourself in terms of the Auditor General. They will start to change. But for now, as they didn't get instruction, not from the executive mayor, from the regional secretary of a particular party that is control of a political space. Nowadays, they even extended to directors and senior managers. You receive call, this is what you should do in terms of appointment, this is what you should do in terms of the awarding of tenders. And those people that get appointed in such, they don't perform their duties because they know they have to give a certain shares to those individuals or either to those political parties. Then the whole service delivery gets compromised.
Sure. Lisiba, thanks for that explanation, because I think you have highlighted so well just what a web it can be. Melanie, the system is supposed to have checks and balances, but when you listen to Lisiba's example, it's very easy to see why those are not effective. So how do we get ourselves out of this situation then as we wrap up?
I think the independence of the committees within the municipality is very, very important. So the system that has always been implemented at national, where the head of SCOPA is coming from a different, party as a way of providing oversight, is one that should also be implemented within the municipality in terms of the MPEC structure. The other committees as well, there must also be, wherever you have the MMC from the one political party, you should be having a chairperson of the oversight committee from a different political party. And that is how the checks and balances, should work. The issue of independence, the issue of follow through, the issue of enforcing legislation, because that is all that the elected lead office bearers are supposed to be doing. They are elected to come and implement and make those policies a reality under whatever circumstances that they could or may face.
Mielani Holeni, we'll leave it there for this morning. Thank you so much for your contribution to the conversation. Thank you to all of you as our listeners for also being part of the conversation. Yeah, we still have quite a number of voice notes that we weren't able to get to. But the reality is, if you have different individuals standing up to do the right thing, enough of them standing up to do the right thing can actually turn the tide against corruption. It's when multiple players are open to being co-opted, right, into the web of corruption that we see the levels and the cycles of corruption that we have that exist sometimes at local government. All right, we'll take your latest news headlines and, of course, we continue the show on the other side of this.
The top stories this hour: the Blue Lights assault case is postponed to next year, and Mohlahlana appointed as the acting president. A very good morning to you. The case of 8 former VIP Presidential Protection Unit officers has been postponed to February next year in the Randburg Magistrates Court. The officers belonging to Deputy President Paul Mohlahlana are accused of assaulting 3 people on the N1 highway in Joburg in July last year. They're facing various charges, including reckless and negligent driving, pointing a firearm, malicious damage to property, and assault. Sashin Naidu has more.
The 8 accused made a brief appearance in the dock before their case was postponed to February next year. The lengthy postponement was as a result of the presiding magistrate and prosecutor's diaries being fully booked for the next few months. Yesterday, the owner of the vehicle the victims were traveling in when they were attacked appeared briefly in the dock, where she was cross-examined by the defense. She reiterated her testimony under cross-examination, stating that the car was in a very bad condition after the alleged incident and that she believes the accused must be held liable for their actions. Sasha Naidu, SABC News at the Randburg Magistrates Court.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed Deputy President Paul Mohlahlana as the acting president as he recovers from an eye infection. Mohlahlana will oversee the signing of the second Presidential Health Compact at the Union Buildings in Pretoria this afternoon. Sibahle Mota takes a look.
Acting President Paul Mohlahlana will officiate the signing of the second Presidential Health Compact. The Health Compact, which was established in 2019, is a framework between critical sectors that include government, business, academia, and civil society. The Presidential Health Compact has a monitoring and evaluation component where roles and responsibilities are assigned to a range of stakeholders to support health systems in preparation of the national health insurance. It consists of 10 pillars that include the development of human resources, improving access to medicine, vaccines, and health products, and the upgrading of infrastructure, amongst others. I am Sibahle Mota in Johannesburg.
Cape Town Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis has written to the energy regulator NERSA to oppose Eskom's planned 44% tariff increase. Hill-Lewis says that the power utility has yet to submit a formal application to NERSA requesting the rate hike. He says Eskom also plans to increase the tariffs for their direct customers by 36%. The mayor says that the planned increases will place more strain on the residents, especially those in the lower income households. Meanwhile, the Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity Group says there is a link between the cost of electricity and the amount of food available to a household. This after Stats SA reported that the consumer price inflation has slowed down for the first time in 3 years. The group's Mervyn Abraham says municipalities have to undertake studies to ensure that the residents can afford the proposed hikes.
Municipalities have to undertake studies around the levels of poverty, levels of income, and affordability within their municipalities. And that is critical in order for these municipalities to assess what is actually affordable in terms of tariff increases. At what point does a tariff increase mean that a household has to disconnect themselves from the electricity grid because they can no longer pay for that electricity?
And the billionaire media executive Oprah Winfrey has urged Americans to choose common sense over nonsense when they cast their ballots in the November election. She was one of the celebrity speakers at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago.
We can't wait to leave here and do something. And what we're going to do is elect Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States.
Taking another look at your top story at 11 o'clock, the case of 8 former VIP Presidential Protection Unit officers has been postponed to February next year in the Randburg Magistrates Court. For SAFM News, Municipal.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, noma uphumapi, and no matter your favorite dish, see if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
Our Tugs have a great plan to illustrate that they are not just intelligent students in class, but on the field of play as well. Meanwhile, the Zuma-based outfit want nothing except for 3 points to run away from the unpleasant zone. The capital city confronts eThekwini. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. University of Pretoria Ladies FC versus Lindelani Ladies FC on Sunday 25 August at 11 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
Cathy, perception is created by some element of reality. It's that perception. It's correct that municipality manager and the mayor, the executive mayor, jobs are more or less the same. So it would be advisable that this post must be scrapped of municipality manager, because at no stage you'd find the municipality manager being held accountable publicly. No. Only the executive mayor is responsible and is held accountable. Thank you, Willie and Kuma.
Cathy, with all due respect to what's being said, it's a business at the end of the day. And it needs to be run like a business at the end of the day. That person has a job description. If they are not doing their job, they should be fired. End of story. You can butter it up, point fingers, make any allegations you want. If they are not performing to their job description, move along. Get somebody that can do the job, that is qualified and does the job for the interest of the public.
Good morning, Sis Cathy. Please ask your guest there, yes, is very sharp. Ask him why the district municipalities, MMs, are failing to do service delivery efficiency than the local municipalities. An example of such is because in Mpumalanga province, most of the districts are not doing well, but only the local municipalities are struggling with finances, but they are doing well when in terms of service delivery as such. Thank you. Benjamin in Mpumalanga.
Good morning, Cathy. Cathy, the only way we will redeem ourselves in terms of civil service is when students and candidates write a central exam to become civil servants and become career civil servants, not this cadre deployment and Johnny-come-latelys that get top posts just with the intention to loot or as part of a cabal who facilitate the looting. In that way, we would never find progress and we'd never improve our society. Look at some of the countries that have a union public service commission that interviews and make these candidates write exam to get into civil servants and attract the best quality civil servants. Think about it. Thank you.
Hi, Sis Cathy. This is Anonymous from Polokwane. Cathy, I want you to know this. What happened to those companies that are given the tenders and then later on they don't complete the project, then you see there is another company joining in to finish that project. What happened to the money? Are they given another money to complete on top of the money that was given to the first tender? Again, the reason why I'm talking about this is about the Polokwane Peter Mokaba Stadium, which is not finished or completed even today since 2010. Thanks.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
Yeah, thank you all for those useful contributions that you've sent through to the show. And this is part of why we have a dedicated segment dealing and addressing issues at a local government level, because we just see and understand the need for the conversation so that we as residents are more aware, but that we are also active in driving solutions for what will ultimately turn local government around. It can be very complex, so we have to take the time to understand. And our listeners are incredibly smart. So many of you are involved in local government. Some of you are in these positions, and so your input is really, really insightful. And I think we all learn listening to the show from what you have to share. So thank you all for being part of the conversation. For our final hour today, we're going to look at the rail sector and where we are in terms of the state of rail in the country. The 13th Southern African Railway Association is currently taking place at the Sandton Convention Centre. It's under the theme Boosting Continental Trade via Rail. Now, there have been a number of issues raised when it comes to rail, not only in the continent, particularly in the Southern African region, but also in a country like South Africa. Joining us for this conversation is Misila Nhlapo. She's the CEO of the African Rail Industry Association. Misila, good morning to you. Thanks for your time this morning.
Morning, Cathy.
Also part of the conversation will be joined by Reggie Boko, who's the acting CEO at Gibela Rail. Misila, let me give you a chance to go first here and perhaps give us the lay of the land. What we know is that rail presents such incredible economic opportunities for a country like South Africa, and also for countries in the region, because so many of our railway routes intersect and connect. But why is it that we have rail probably doing the worst that it has in a long time?
Railways are a complex business, and from a naked eye, it looks, simple. Let's move this, move that, and it's not like that. There are a number of moving parts that are involved, and if you are not involved in the railways, we then tend to think that process is not working, Transnet is not working. In reality, if you find an organization that is not performing well today, it won't take 6 months or even 2 years to turn around the organization. And Transnet has been quite exceptional when with the current leadership about, boots on the ground and getting to work. I mean, you've seen recently that there's been, people are actually now being employed again from having voluntary severance packages. So it's not easy. But if you look at the continental vision, the CFTA, if I can steal from the African Union, is that you need to have a world-class infrastructure that crisscrosses the continent. You need to have that infrastructure to be able to increase intra-Africa trade. So purely economical, but we need to see regions on their own and on the continent perspective that Africa must work with Africans to benefit Africans. And we can only do this once we start seeing, like from a block at SADC, where you have the railway operators and mostly that government-owned coming together with private sector and deciding the future of railways. What SARA does differently is that they bring everybody on board, particularly the downstream economy, those that make the wheels turn, those that make sure that there is steel being laid on the ground. Those are the workers that are invisible to many of us, but the people that do the work, the operation, the railway safety regulator. So at SARA, if anyone wants to know about the railways, that's the event that informs the future, not those that only talk about policy, but hardworking railroad men and women.
Ms. Ella, let's talk about the economic opportunities that rail presents for a country like South Africa.
The opportunities are many. We have been talking about third-party access, which is informed by the blueprinting the national rail policy. And we know that logistics are the backbone of the economy. And we have lost that in the past few years. So it's important that we get back. We're able to service the mining industry. We're able to service strategic sectors such as agriculture. You need to service, the automotive sector. So it has a huge domino effect throughout all sectors. So we need to, in order for us to deal with unemployment, economic decline, the manufacturing within the country and on the continent must take place, and it should not be negotiable. Because if you want to get the Africans out of poverty, Africans are always willing to work. And then therefore, any policy that excludes men and women of this country, and Africans in particular, is a policy that is bound to fail. So it's important that once we're having an economic discussion, this economic discussion must include human beings that reside in South Africa, that reside on the continent, and having one voice as a continent. For an example, if we were to develop a rail master plan as a country, that would not work because we are no longer working as South Africans, but as Africans. So we need to be engaging with African states to ensure that that dream of Cape to Cairo does indeed take place. But if we don't have a single vision of having a single type of network that will then be able to crisscross the continent, then our vision of having a united Africa, increasing intra-Africa trade, is bound to fail. My first sense is that everybody must be on board, particularly businesses that have for decades based their business model on Transnet and PRASA. So if you want to reduce Transnet to be a small thing, you must know that you are killing business elsewhere.
Let me bring into this conversation the acting CEO at Gibela Rail, Reggie Boko, who's in studio with me. Reggie, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to your listeners.
So you, of course, are an entity that has done a lot of work in the rail sector and I think has benefited quite a lot from the opportunities in the sector. When we talk about the economic opportunities that rail presents for the country, how much potential do you think is sitting unlocked in the industry?
Thank you very much, Cathy. I think rail, and this is quite cemented in the NDP as well, that rail is the backbone of the economy. If you think about the number of taxis and buses that move people, compared to what rail can do from an economic perspective, if you live in a place like Takani or you live in Soweto, you have to leave home at 5 o'clock to make it to work by 8 o'clock. And sometimes it's not even good enough. But if we had a reliable rail transport to move people, you don't have to wake up that early. Because take for instance our train in Gibela, we can move 1,200 people comfortably at one go. How many taxis would that be? How many buses would that be? And this is why it's so important. But talking about economic development as well, from a Gibela perspective, we say that we produce trains, we maintain trains. But we actually think that our objective is to give people dignity. So you look at what was there before compared to what is there before currently with our product, you see the dignity we give people and how we cement our business in the economy is that we move with our ecosystem. So we develop suppliers from very early stages. We bring suppliers from overseas to localize so that our people can get jobs. We bring communities to be part of our environment. We've got a Gibela Incubation Center in the East End, which supports the small businesses and help them to develop. But we also give opportunities to local businesses so that everyone around where we operate should benefit from Gibela's operations. And this is what makes it a success in our view.
Rail, unfortunately, in this country, due to the challenges that the likes of Transnet and PRASA have had over the years, and their associated subsidiaries, by the way. So you look at Metro Rail and all the other passenger locomotives. Part of what that has done is that it's given even the idea of public transport via rail a bad name. When you talk about people going on the train, people don't want to go on the train because they feel it's unsafe. They'd rather pay more to catch a taxi, pay even more to get on a bus. Of course, if you're talking about something like the Gautrain, it's a completely different experience, right? But when you go to Europe, you go to the US, the main mode of transport that people use is a train. It's easy to hop on and off a train, going in and out of the city and different parts of even the country or the continent, if we're talking Europe. You do that via train. What is it going to take for us to get there? As South Africa, perhaps before we even get to the region, and I know why the conversation around the region is important, but of course we have to start with what do we need to get working first?
Yeah. So firstly, I think let's qualify this response I'll give by saying that as Gibela, we're not operators, we are manufacturers and we maintain trains. So that's really our forte. But speaking about operations, we are of course interested because that's where our product goes and that's where our product makes a difference. So what we have seen now being done by PRASA in particular is that with the launch of our trains, so if you go to KZN, we have a footprint there to support their corridors that they've opened there. They've opened up more than 30 corridors out of 40 that they have prioritized. If you go to Cape Town, they've opened corridors, and here in Johannesburg, we've recently, I think, about a year or so, opened the corridor now from Park Station to Naledi. If you take a ride on that train, exactly what you're saying, you will experience it. So what they have done is they have brought in protection services within PRASA. So now when you go into a train, first of all, you will not find hawkers in the train. You will not find people eating or smoking in the train. And you will find how we've made our train. They've got demarcated seats for the elderly, for people that are pregnant, and all of those things, and people with disabilities. So the doors, for instance, as an example, they open so wide that if you are in a wheelchair, it's easy to access the train and all of that. But I think the protection services that PRASA has brought into the trains give you peace of mind. People are working on laptops now when they ride on these trains, and I think it's something that perhaps needs to be emphasized a lot, and more people should understand and know about it. If you ask people on the in Pretoria North that are taking the train to Mabopane, as an example, from Pretoria Station, people that are taking a train, as I said, from Park Station to Naledi, people that are taking a train from Cape Town to Simonstown. And that one is beautiful because you see the mountain on one side, you see the sea on the other side. But when you experience that, and we do that, we ride the train ourselves so that we can experience what our product does to the market, you will feel very different. It's different from Europe because in Europe you don't see securities visible and stuff. Here, I think PRASA is cementing the view that we want to make this service very, very safe, and people must not only feel safe, they must see the safety that's around them, and they've done a good job around that. So I think it would be great for listeners to actually take a ride and try it out. But from what I have experienced personally with all these corridors that I'm talking about, I think it's magic. You haven't seen that before.
All right, fantastic. It's good to hear. Misila, the conversation, of course, around rail is not confined just to moving people around. It's also around moving goods around, because that has a direct impact on our economy. When we look at the contribution that rail alone makes to this economy, we just have to think back to December, when we had the deadlock on the ports and goods not moving around and certain rail routes that had been shut down. We saw business literally up in arms over just the impact that had over a period of a couple of weeks. So from the logistics end, what are the things that we can and should be doing differently as a country to better optimize the opportunity that rail presents?
I think the magic word is as a country. I think that as South Africans, we tend to work with, there's the railways, there's the ports, the roads. I think the entire ecosystem should start working together and having a policy that looks at logistics in that way. One mode is not better than the other mode, but yet they complement each other. So if you have problems with the ports, you make sure that they affect any other mode of transport that is related, whether with goods going in or outside, going outside the country. So what is important is that working together and find a common understanding of what we stand for as a country and what we need to do. In the earlier response from Gibela, the Gibela is people-centric, and we need to bring that type of attitude when we develop solutions for the railway industry, for the country. That if we put people first, the rest shall follow. But if we put only the interest of business on its own cannot survive on its own, but it needs people. When people are taken care of, the businesses thrive. So we need to bring the human element in the railway industry to find the solutions that work for South Africans, not only for business, but business and South Africans. And it's important that in this conversation that is taking place, Gibela is bringing on new trains, but that contract comes to an end at some point. So we should not be caught off guard when there are no more trains that are coming out of Gibela, because Gibela is doing fantastic work, they're producing. But that contract needs to be extended so that we don't blame DOT Gibela. That contract, we cannot sit here and say we don't know what's going to happen then. Those negotiations must start now. And when he talks about, Gibela talks about suppliers. Gibela is not only developing suppliers for themselves, they're developing suppliers for the industry. So they will supply both for passenger market and they will supply for the freight market. And who are these companies? Those companies, the likes of Lucchini, Alstom, and many others, Waptec. So if we develop policies that threaten the current investment that we have, what are we going to tell the French government? What are we going to tell the Italian government? What are we going to tell many other countries that have invested and truly invested in the country? So when we talk about rail reform, it must be people-centered because the people of this country come first.
We're going to continue the conversation in a moment. I'll give you a chance to go on, Reggie. It's 11:30. It's time for the latest news headlines. We'll continue with this conversation, taking a look at the rail sector. It's off the back of the 13th Southern African Railway Association conference that is taking place in Johannesburg this week.
A very good morning to you with the news headlines. Kemudupi Makhalemele. Transport Union Satau says it wants to avoid a looming workers' strike at the Air Traffic and Navigation Services because air traffic control is an essential service. The case against the former VIP Presidential Protection Unit officers attached to Deputy President Paul Mashatile has been postponed to tomorrow in the Randburg Magistrates Court. And Cape Town Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis has written to energy regulator NERSA to oppose Eskom's planned 44% tariff increase. Details of these and other stories at midday.
Feel Good Fridays just got even better with a brand new Espresso newsletter, The Feel Good Fix. Delivered to your inbox every Friday, it is your weekly dose of joy, entertainment, and local flair. Subscribe now at expressoshow.com and never miss a moment.
From heartwarming stories to tasty recipes, it's all there waiting for you. And remember to tune in to the Espresso Morning Show weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. on S3, and let's start your day right and channel your inner feel good.
S3. 18 teams are back on the hunting ground. No one wants a loss or a draw. They are all searching for maximum points in every encounter. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Do not miss out on the 2024-2025 Bundesliga season. Catch the action live on Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the Talking Point. We're focusing on rail for this conversation. I see some of you already dialing in. I'm going to try and see where best we can make sure we make time for your contribution to this conversation. Msila Nhlapho is the CEO of the African Rail Industry Association, and Reggie Boko, acting CEO at Gibela Rail. So, Reggie, you wanted to respond to what Msila raised. I'm guessing, is it on the issue of reform?
Well, it covers reform as well, but I wanted to speak to the point that she raised, which was important, that, you know, it's all about people and it's also about the future. So she touched on, you know, the fact that we need to be starting to talk about what next. after the current contract. And I wanted to just articulate one of the key points in our contract that talks to the vision that the government had when they awarded this contract to Gibela and through PRASA. And the vision was that in the country, for more than 40 years, there had not been any investment in the rail industry. So South Africa used to have a capability to produce trains. And I think we all know that, subsequent years, we've been buying trains from all over the world. And the government took a strategic decision to decide that we need to now rebuild the capability. So what have we done in Gibela? So one of the first things was, let's establish a state-of-the-art facility, which is now in Ekurhuleni. We occupy about 52,000 square meters with our facility. What have we achieved with that? So we have 1,200 people, so that's our total workforce, very youthful. 80% of them are youth. And this gives you a sense. Why is that like that? It is about building for the future. So we develop a lot of people. We send them all over the world to go and learn their trade and bring it here, train the locals and all of that. But if you train the young people, it means they remain in the industry for a bit longer. And the training that we give them certainly outlasts the contract we have. So you can see the vision is not about the contract, it's about what we leave in the country as a legacy going forward, but also for the region as well. Of these 80 people, from a transformation point of view, 45% are women across all areas. When I say across, I mean 62% of our board members are women and 50% of them are South African women. In the executive, 67% women as well.
Sure.
So you will find across the shop floor, whether it's a welder, whether it's an engineer, you will find women across it. And the reason for that is we say we can automate the environment, we can make it workable for everyone, and let's build the capacity for the future. So when we talk about people-centric, it also starts from what is the vision? And our vision is that, yes, we have a contract now, but there should be future work coming, and the region is open. So at the SARA conference, as an example, we've engaged with a number of countries that are quite interested in what we do in Gibela. Some of them have been to our facility to see what we do, and they're interested in saying, how can you help us as well as you're doing for PRASA?
What Misila is saying around the reforms in the industry, and in particular the third-party access, and this is opening up, of course, a portion of the railway, routes, however that's going to be broken down into, to private players, to private business to come in and operate, is that this conversation around localization will need attention, because these private players, they don't have to buy trains or locomotives produced in this country. They can order, they can make them wherever, bring them into the country and use them. So as Gibela, what would you say your concerns are around the current process of third-party access, and how do you think it's going to affect you as a local manufacturer?
I think the first thing we should say is that what is a good advantage of this third-party access is that efficiency will be a thing that we'll see that we haven't seen before, which is great, and I think it will be competitive as well. But from a localization perspective, it is important that these suppliers or these players look for opportunities in South Africa to source their locomotives, the trains that they'll be using. What we've done in Gibela, Cathy, that I can share with you and the listeners is that we have a very high local content objective. So we need to achieve 65% local content. So when you see the train, 65% of it should be a South African element to it. We're currently over 60%. We are well on our way to achieve that. How we do that is we go to suppliers that are international and we bring them local. We say, you can make it, but you make it locally so you can employ people locally here, and you can leave the skills in the country. And as time goes on, you need to find material locally so that you improve your local content. That's the first thing. The second thing is we actively build suppliers locally so that we can get all our goods and services to the extent that it's possible locally, and that builds the economy around where we operate. So I think with the third party access, we would want them to source locally as well, and this is where we strengthen our capability, and we say to people, we are ready to supply you. You look for these trains, you look for these locomotives, come and speak to us. We can give this locally. Yeah.
Let me bring in Lungisa. You're calling us from Cape Town. Good morning, Lungisa.
Good morning, Cathy.
Yes.
Yes. It's very much interesting with cities, but I'm looking at what he is seeing as an advantage, the availability of security in the train. I'm really concerned because every attempt that is being done in trying to raise the services in this country, there's a common factor that is negative, which is the crime. As long as we are not addressing the crime, the services that we are trying to provide will end up escalating in terms of the service, the price fares, because of this element.
Absolutely, Lungisa.
Yeah. Now, I once suggested with the then the Minister of Transport, which was Ndebele, his consultant. I was talking about the question of accidents that are caused during Easter and December, and the road that is being destroyed by trucks that are traveling, and of which those roads were not constructed for that people. So I said one of the things is that to have a hard train in between Joburg and Pretoria, instead we should have hard train in long distances. And if we can have hard train in long distances, the rate of accidents that will be reduced will be very high, as well as the cost of transport, which will have an effect in the cost of living, which is rising every year in South Africa, will be controlled.
All right. All right, Lungisa, I'm going to ask you to pause it there. And you're right when it comes to cost, right? Rail is always cheaper than any other mode of transport. Donald, you're in Rustenburg. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and the brilliant team behind the scenes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad, Cathy, the conversation is not only centered for like South Africa, but for the entire region. I thought we are going to invite someone from the National Railways of Zimbabwe. They are there at Sarah in Centon. Because our rail network that side is deteriorating. So I want to ask if the representative from Gibela if they can make a deal with National Railways of Zimbabwe so that they can manufacture some locomotives to boost the trade in the region.
Okay.
So it will also minimize the accidents on the roads.
All right, Donald. We'll certainly put that question to our guests. Let me play a couple of your WhatsApp voice notes, and then we'll get to the final responses.
Now we need to really improve our railways. I mean, right now I'm driving, the trucks are full on the road. And you know the accidents that are happening, like almost everywhere where there's an accident, it's unlikely. It's actually likely that the truck was the cause of that. So we really need to do something about it. The trucks are killing us on the road. So rather, let's go back to the railway.
Hi, Sis Cathy Kwena here. Sis Cathy, please ask your guest, because I saw Botswana is joining hands with Zimbabwe and Mozambique. So they're making this train that they say it will be delivering goods between the SADC region, these three countries. So they made a deal, but I didn't see South Africa playing a role in it. And apparently seems like the train will be moving within the borders of South Africa because it will be going through, I think, Mosina and all that. So where are we standing with these countries, and how come such initiative or development it's happening in our country, but we're not even part of it? Or was there any invitation from these countries to say, we are doing this initiative, we're thinking of this, and this is our proposal? Thank you. Good show.
All right, thanks for all those questions and contributions. Misila?
People say, Gibela's role and Prasa's role and duty. When these three organizations work well, particularly on the leadership level, we need to appreciate that. And because that's where local content becomes important. But we cannot allow as a country that local content is only applicable to Gibela, Prasa, and Transnet. If we are truly patriotic as South Africans, local content, if it's applicable to business should accept it, as we want to bring in that efficiency. But one of the questions that we are asking about rail reform, the question is that why are we doing it? And the answer can be that Transnet is inefficient, and then therefore, if we could have a magic wand today and Transnet reaches their 228, let's say 230 million tons per annum, why are we doing this? We're doing this to complement Transnet, to supplement Transnet. We're not in competition with Transnet. So on the freight side, we have to work together with passengers because it's one industry. There's a comment around the region. This is one of the most important conversation that is being had on the region. It's not just another conference, but this is where the region meets and the discussion about the railways then takes place. And I think it's important that as South Africans, we need to get into the habit of finding out, being in the take-up space, as one famous lady once said. These things are not going to come to us. We have to go and get them and be a hunting pack as Africans. We need to make sure that African projects, they have an increased amount of African content.
Okay.
That is quite key. With the manufacturing on the country, I think the region itself must decide that if manufacturing for particular products will be coming from the South African, what do we want to have manufactured in Zimbabwe? What do we want to have manufactured? Because it's not everybody that is going to manufacture locomotives, coaches, the same as Gibela. We need to have a discussion who does what.
All right, Ms. We're running out of time. Unfortunately, I've got no more time left. Reggie, I'm going to give you a minute in studio. We have to wrap it up.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think just to put one of the listeners at ease, and maybe all the listeners, is the safety has been addressed by PRASA, and I encourage everyone to go and try out these trains and see what the service looks like there. From a supply perspective, I think as Gibela, we are open for business. We're ready. We can supply the region. We have built capability, as I've said, and I think that can happen. In terms of the arrangements that other countries are making, South Africa is always in those conversations. And I know, particularly between South Africa and Mozambique, to try and reduce the number of trucks on the N4 to Maputo, that is well in advance, and that is probably happening or will happen soon. So that South Africa is always in the middle of those conversations. But I want to encourage people, try out our product, tell us how it's going, but experience it, and I think you will have a different view. I think people have withdrawn from the service because of what they've experienced before, but they need to be brave and go and try it out and see it. I think from an economic perspective as well, it's cheaper just traveling. I mean, it's 9 rand, 50 rand to go from Pakistan to Soweto instead of paying 17 rand on a taxi. So the economics speak for themselves.
All right.
Thank you very much.
We're going to have to leave it there with this particular conversation, certainly one that we will continue with as the developments unfold. That's where we leave it on the talking point for this morning. The show back with you again tomorrow between 9 and midday.
Catch me, Bonang Mateba, on a fresh reality series that showcases the business behind being a business. Get to experience an intimate look at my life with family, personal growth, and my mission to uplift young women. Jet with me as we prepare to crown a lucky chaser. Be grounded, be entertained, and be dazzled. Monday, 6 p.m. on S3, it's a date with you and B. Catch Bedazzled by Bonang on S3 every Monday at 6 p.m.
Big ups to all the women of Africa Dzonga. Incredible characters in various fields. When you set your mind onto something, your winning mentality is difficult to defeat. On and off the field. Your excellence in the world of sport speaks volumes. You are the great inspiration to the nation. Happy Women's Month, courtesy of SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAFM presents another episode of A Life of Purpose, written by Luvuyo Wachela and Lumkile Wiseman Kuhlu. The reader is Lerato Velase.
He was rapidly introduced to the daily routine of the Mbulukweza household. During summer seasons, daily routines that mostly encompassed livestock herding, the milking of cows, and the cropping of vegetables were supplemented by others. It was customary for working days to begin before sunrise with the assembling of the ox span. Ploughing would take about 2 or 3 hours, often ending shortly before 8 in the morning, just as Lumkile and other children prepared to go to school. Oxen would be released to graze on pasture land while the children were still at school, but on their return from school in the evenings, ploughing sessions would resume, which meant that Lumkile and the other children had another task, to collect oxen from pasture lands. That entailed long-distance walking. All in all, there were always activities to contend with, before and after school, for much of the year. In these challenging circumstances, Lumkile grew conscious that he needed to take more responsibility for his school lessons, and for the first time, he became aware of the position he could achieve in his class if he tried harder. He also became aware of his talent for arithmetic and gained satisfaction from working with numbers. I started taking particular pride in sums. You know, in those days, teachers used to punish on the spot if you didn't get your sums right. So I used to escape those punishments and actually find it funny that I found it easy to do sums and get them right. Possibly 90% of the class would not get them right. I started having pride and then started taking my schoolwork more seriously. Lumkile's response to the new challenges reflected the strong qualities promoted in his home at Apamnce and reinforced by his appreciation of his family's legacy. He was inspired to learn that some of his uncles had passed matric, a major school qualification in those days. Then Nomanjeya and Makambula, the sister and mother of Dio, were teachers who inspired him. Being close to his grandmother drew him further into the history of his father's family. He learned a great deal about his great-grandfather, Bikani, his conversion to Christianity, and his participation in the establishment of the Mbulukweza Presbyterian Mission Station. He also learned of the works and the legacy of his grandfather, Willie Nkuhlu, who was one of the first few evangelists in the Presbyterian Church. It enhanced my sense of wanting to belong to this family. So I started appreciating those things and taking pride in these people from my family. I felt this is a family of achievers and also of strong Christian faith. The fact that I was sent to go and stay with my grandmother gave me that kind of exposure, just to get to know who I am, where I belong, and so on. It was also at Mbulukweza and during this time that Lumkile met one of his cousins, Thembekile Nkuhlu, who also shared his English name, Wiseman. Thembekile, who had already completed matric, worked as a clerk in Port Elizabeth, and often talked to Lumkile about the value of education, another strong source of inspiration for Lumkile. Lessons on the Nkuhlu heritage continued. The initiation ceremony, Umgidi, of one of his uncles, Zamuxolo, in 1957, became one key educational event. As was the norm, crowds of relatives, especially from the original Nkuhlu house in Xolobe, came for the event, and Lumkile met many of his uncles, including Gcinizi Alam, father of Tembekile, and Mbuleli Nkuhlu, a renowned teacher who had taught Albertina Sisulu at Xolobe in the 1920s before becoming principal of Mbulu Primary School in later years. Responsibilities within and outside the school environment continued to mount for Lumkile, despite outstanding classroom achievements. In the second year of schooling in Mbulukweza during 1957, he had been joined by his brother Mandla from Cala. As an added gesture and a contribution to sustaining the Mbulukweza household with milk, Dio had also given his mother, Makambula, 2 special dairy cows that Lumkile caringly looked after, and he now also had an added duty, looking after his brother. Mbulukweza welcomed Mandla as it had welcomed Lumkile, but they still had to endure the regular and dreaded long walks from Tsomo to Mbulukweza. Perhaps the point has to be made that despite the dispersed nature of settlements in those days, it was still relatively safe, and not uncommon for younger people in rural localities to walk vast distances. Sometimes elderly people, including herders, hunters, and even trained herbalists, also undertook such journeys, often on their way rummaging through the countryside for specific herbs or plants. Nevertheless, it was brave of boys aged 13 and 11, respectively, to embark on an almost a full day's walk, cutting through villages en route. The 35 or so kilometers that Lumkile and Mandla walked invariably involved off-road stops. Usually they were provided with food, but they still needed water to be replenished, which at times they got from streams they crossed or from households they passed. They would be asked about their family, place of origin, and destination. In return, they would learn about the families who replenished their water supplies. Sometimes, of course, these good Samaritans knew members of the Nkuhlu family, and in those cases, they would be offered more than mere drinking water. Generosity and humanity flourished in those times. In Lumkile's words, it showed that the world was not wicked. It is worth re-emphasizing how regimented the social division of labor was. Milking the cows involved men and young boys, including Lumkile and sometimes Mandla. The summer months demanded more labor, and the boys worked under the custodianship of their uncle, Tuni Nkuhlu, the elder brother of Dio. He lived in a nearby house, but monitored on a daily basis what was happening in his mother's house, where Lumkile and Mandla lived. He also regularly gave advice and himself conducted ploughing and cultivation. A variety of crops were planted: sorghum, beans, maize, pumpkins, and potatoes. The crops were mostly processed in the household in the villages of Tsomo, Mbulukweza, and Xolobe, where the original Nkuhlu household was located. Maize would be ground and processed to maize meal or crushed to samp. The household had the necessary equipment, such as the stone grinder and a wooden maize crusher. Much of this food processing was done by the elderly women and the young girls, but Lumkile was also trained by his grandmother to participate. Nothemba Khunei, a cousin of Lumkile and Mandla, was one of the young girls who lived in the house with Makambula. Lumkile was the best grinder of sorghum, and he could crush maize and cook better than us girls. Wayenusha epheka ngaphezulu kwethu mantombazana. He also polished the floors for the houses and basically helped us with most of our domestic work. Food processed at home was supplemented with meat from cattle, sheep, and goats, as well as the chickens, which also provided eggs. Only a few items were purchased from the German general dealer, Walter Gitzmann, whose shop was 10 minutes away. This work kept Lumkile at home for much of the time, and thus he continued to benefit from the help his grandmother and occasionally his aunt Nomanjeya gave with his schoolwork. From 1956, he did well consistently, and from mid-1958, at the age of 14, there was talk about his progress to secondary school. Whereas some of the older boys were considering work opportunities, especially migrant labor, Lumkile was inspired to take his education further. With outstanding achievement, especially in arithmetic and English, he completed Standard 6 at the end of 1958, and that marked the end of his 3-year stay at Mbulukweza. Early secondary school, 1959 to 1961. Mixed emotions engulfed him on his return to his home village of Apamnxe in Kala at the end of 1958. A part of him was sad to leave the place he had grown used to. Dio had successfully applied and arranged for him to start his 3-year junior certificate course, Standard 7 to Standard 9, at the famous Arthur Tsengiwe School, established near the town of Kala in the early 1940s and named after a local headman. The story behind the establishment of this school and how its foundation affected Kala or Kalanga local politics from the late 1930s to the mid-1940s is documented extensively in the work of Lungisile Ntsebeza. Despite the profusion of church denominations that had established a number of primary schools, by the 1930s, the district still lacked its own secondary school. The Dutch Reformed Church, DRC, was becoming popular in African settlements and had started exerting influence over some Kala villages, including Rebel Skloof and Tsengiwe, named after Richard Tsengiwe, a court interpreter in Kala during the late 19th century. Arthur Tsengiwe, the son of Richard, who also became the headman in the lower Kala villages after 1927, was a staunch supporter of the DRC. In the debates about the formation of a secondary school in the district, the DRC had offered to buy land and build a school near the town of Kala. It did so by opening a private native secondary school on a temporary site at the beginning of 1945. In 1947, after extending the school to an open and a bigger site on the Kala commonage, the DRC named it after Arthur Tsengiwe. Opposition to its opening came from local Africans, led by the Wesleyans, who had in the meantime built and opened their own secondary school at the village of Askiaten, further west towards Lady Frey. This school, however, lacked the funds to continue functioning.
That was another episode of A Life of Purpose, second edition, written by Luvuyo Wachela and Lumkile Wiseman Kuhlu. The book is available online on www.kmmr.co.za, KMMR Publishers, and in all leading bookstores countrywide. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursday on The Talking Point. It is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Lerato Mvelase, technical production Wiseman Manqele and Nanda Khoza.
Well, it's 2 minutes after 12. It's Thursday, the 22nd of August, 2024. Very warm welcome to Updated Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour.
To date, the total number of positive cases recorded stands at 24, and this includes 3 deaths, 19 recoveries, and 2 active cases undergoing home isolation.
Cabinet assures the nation that the outbreak of the Mpox virus is under control, despite the World Health Organization declaring it a public health emergency. And
so there are people who are enjoying close proximity to the president, and they are doing some other things without his knowledge. I'm using his name. I've always said that they use his name to say he has agreed to this, has agreed to that, because they know rather that we'll never be able to get to him.
Sacked MK party members of parliament throw stones at the party leadership ahead of a media address by party leader Jacob Zuma. And coming up in sport,
the Proteas are feeling the vibe ahead of their T20s against the Caribbean. That's their word. All Blacks have lost a coach, and there's some athletics coming up today. Looking forward to that.
John Gericke with those details, second half of the show. So please share your views with us with 41391. That's our SMS line number, charged at R1.50 per SMS. You can also write to us via X or Facebook, our handle at SABC News_radio, or you can use the hashtag update at noon. If you want to send us a WhatsApp voice note, that number 082-692-3909. Well, these and more stories coming up on this Thursday edition of Update at Noon. First, though, here's the latest news with Mudubi Mohlahlana.
Thank you very much, Sakina. The top stories at midday: a looming strike could disrupt air travel in SA, and the blue lights assault case postponed to next year. A very good afternoon. Transport Union Satawu says it wants to avoid a looming workers' strike at the Air Traffic and Navigation Services because air traffic control is an essential service. The strike could potentially disrupt air travel in the country. The union is demanding a 6.5% wage increase, but negotiations have deadlocked as ATNS is offering 2% less. Satawu's Nelson Lamichi says the reasons that the employer has offered for rejecting the wage hike is confusing.
We have 3 bargaining units at ATNS. We settled in the other 2 bargaining units in different percentages, which varies from 6.7 and 6.8. However, we deadlocked in terms of what management offered in the ATS bargaining unit. And they are saying in terms of the ATS bargaining unit, they cannot afford giving our members 6.5 as demanded by the union because the company is not in a good financial standing.
The case of 8 former VIP Presidential Protection Unit officers has been postponed to February next year in the Randburg Magistrates Court.